Last week, El Salvador's president told Secretary of State Marco Rubio his country would incarcerate deportees from the United States. Well, this morning, we are getting a rare look at the country's prison system. CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano traveled to El Salvador and got extraordinary access to a prison housing some of the country's most dangerous criminals.
Is it possible to get a tattoo like this if you're not a gang member?
No, you gotta kill.
You gotta kill to get those tattoos. How do you feel right now?
Gotta recognize that what happened to us is like that Titanic, that we were big and strong gang, but we got hit with the iceberg.
Are you going to be here the rest of your life?
Yeah, the rest of my life. We murdered a lot of people, and this is the consequence of what we did one day.
How do you stay sane? How do you keep your head above water?
Like, try to act strong in the day and cry in the nighttime.
You cry at night?
Yeah, because we know that we're not going to get out of here. It's a maximum security prison.
What was the gang that you were a part of?
MS-13.
And Lilia Luciano joins us now. So Lilia, this is incredible access that you received to this prison. First of all, let's talk about why you wanted to do the story.
Oh, Vlad, this story goes back so many years. For years, I covered, as you know, the border, even before joining CBS News. And I remember so many stories of people who had suffered the most brutal extortion, kidnapping, torture by these gangs. And suddenly, I stopped meeting Salvadorians at the border. I mean, the numbers dropped significantly. So I started looking into what was happening beyond the border. Of course, learned a lot about the crackdown on these gangs by Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador. And so for over a year and a half, I've been asking for access, both to interview the president, which I haven't been able to do, but also to this prison because it is notorious. It is also kind of, you know, the way I see it, it was very difficult to be there. It's going to take me a while to process what I saw. But there's something that's very interesting, and it's like almost like the branding, not of the people, but of the whole system. Nayib Bukele now is telling the U.S., offered Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, the possibility of deporting and outsourcing our detention system for criminal immigrants and people who have a criminal record, but also even to U.S. citizens in our prison system. So he's been very adamant to show this system to the world, and being in there, you kind of get a really interesting look at the message that is being sent. We were able to crack down on these gangs. We were able to solve the issue of organized crime that is usually controlled from prisons all throughout the region and throughout the world. But at what cost? And that's something else that I'm looking into in this story that we're presenting tomorrow on the evening news.
So the idea would be that migrants and undocumented immigrants here in the United States who have broken laws, who are criminals, right? We're talking about hardcore criminals. We're not talking about a mom and a child. That's the question that I have.
That's the question. Bukele said people with convictions, including U.S. citizens. Of course, there are legal issues with that. There are constitutional issues. Both Marco Rubio and President Trump have noted that. But, you know, when we look at what does it mean to break the law, this prison, yes, it is filled with the most dangerous gang members. Many of them, most of them, according to some experts, although the data is not transparent, is not available, were in prison even before Bukele's crackdown, before his state of exception. We also looked into the state of exception. I did a patrol with their Secretary of Defense, who is armed, walking around the streets, and people come up and hug him and say, hey, thank you for what you've done. But at the same time, you ask, wait, so who has been detained under this state of exception? And human rights organizations that used to help the people who were victimized by the gangs are now helping people who they say are being persecuted by the state. They tell you that the 84,000 people who have been detained under this state of exception that gives a lot of power to police and a few rights to people are mostly not the people that we see in Secot, but everyday people with very little evidence of any gang connection.
Wow, powerful reporting, Lilia. You always do incredible reporting, but I think that this piece will have an impact on people's understanding of what President Trump is seeking to do and what some other world leaders presidents of other countries have done, and what that means just constitutionally speaking for their own citizens.
Those
Really interesting.
collaborations between us and the region, also Bukele is trying to bring more investment into his country, which is a whole other conversation.
Can't wait to see it. Thank you, Lilia, as
Thanks,
always.
Matt.